tell me about you, Jeremiah. I'd love to know where you started, how you ended up where you're at, and then now all these cool videos on Instagram where, I mean, you're offering tips and pointers on how to fix your own body that are absolutely at the forefront of healing, I would say.
I suffered with a lot of issues myself. I herniated my first disc in chiropractic school, first damn semester, right before finals. And it was so bad, like I couldn't even sit. And so that was kind of my ground zero was that. And I proceeded to just suffer for 10 years with disc issues. My kids were little. I couldn't even put them in the crib, like, bending over like that, just because, my back would go out. So I was always suffering with that. I was always dealing with shoulder issues. Um, maybe just initially into practice, when I was, seeing maybe 5 patients a day, like my hands were starting to kind of kill me. And I would I bought a $20,000 laser. I'm zapping my hands. I'm, putting them in ice baths. I'm taping it. I'm trying to break up the scar tissue. None of this stuff is like working. And, so I'm like, at that time, I had all the time in the world and I'm digging, trying to figure out, I'm like, what could it be? What could it be? What could it be? And I'm chasing down all these pathways. And I came across gluten intolerance initially. And I was like, it's like, man, that's bullshit. Like, I grew up eating pizza for breakfast. Like, I drank beer in my 20s. Like, that's not me. So I gave it, a half-hearted, attempt to cut it out. I would cut it out during the weekdays, have all my favorite stuff in the weekends, and I didn't really see a difference. And so, so finally I came across this scientist and he was talking about intolerance, and he was like, just the amount found in community wafer is enough to cause an inflammatory reaction for 9 to 12 weeks afterwards. And I was like, get out of Dodge, because it was getting to that point. I'm like, man, I've got like another, like, 30, 40 years of this career. Like, these are my hands. Like, I can't even function. Like, I'm sitting there, like, working on patients, like working on my hands. I'm like, oh man, this is kind of killing me. So I cut it out completely and the pain goes away. And I'm like, and it's not like one of those, wasn't so dramatic that like, it's like wasn't like a light switch, but we went home back to Buffalo, New York, a couple months later on. And, I get there and I'm like, man, I've been so good on my diet. Like, I owe myself a beer and a hot dog. And I had a beer and a hot dog and within 24 hours, like everything hurt. And I'm like, no, 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 it's not that. Like, I
Yeah, yeah,
slept wrong on the
exactly.
plane. Like, it's not the beer. It's not the hot dog. Like, I
Yeah.
just need to get it adjusted, and, something like that. And so, I get back home, get back on my diet again. And then a couple months later on, it was just another vacation type thing. And then, suffered. And I was like, oh my God, like this is actually like a thing. And so it was kind of right from there that I started kind of like realizing that, like, sometimes some of the answers might be outside of what I'm normally looking at. But if you're obsessive about something, if you're, ADHD enough and you just don't give up and you just try like a million different things, eventually you're going to hit that key. And so that's kind of what happened with me. And so, I started becoming addicted to more stuff like that. Like, how can I fix people better, quicker? And so I was already specializing in this patented myofascial release. It's called active release technique. You go in, you break up scar tissue in the muscles, and I was starting to get crazy results with that. But again, I would get addicted to, like, I would see people online, claiming amazing things. And so I would go take their class, or I would go, like, watch everything I could about them. And I was trying to do it like Bruce Lee. I would borrow like little bits and I would experiment on patients, and it would either work or it didn't. And so, slowly but surely, my office started kind of like just blowing up in general. We ended up getting, we started getting 1,000 word of mouth patients every year. And so that allowed me enough to start like testing some of this weird stuff like on people. And sometimes, like I said, sometimes things would work amazing and sometimes like it wouldn't. And I just, that's what I carried for the past 22 years. And I'm still obsessed about it, 22 years later on. I still think it's an amazing thing. I just told my wife, like, 10 minutes before we were talking, I'm like, oh my God, I cracked this problem working on patients that I've been working on for 22 years, and it is jaw dropping. And it's just, it's still exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. So, did you always know you were going to be a healer and a chiropractor, or did you grow up
I
wanting
didn't.
to be a police officer and then fell
No, no,
into it?
no. I grew up wanting to be a veterinarian.
A veterinarian. Okay. So you
A
always had the
veterinarian.
idea you're going to heal something.
No, it's just I liked animals, and so I was like, oh, I'll get to play with like puppy dogs and stuff like that. And I went and I shadowed a veterinarian, and it wasn't the experience that I was hoping for. So I was like, And so I didn't
Yeah.
even really know what I wanted to do. And my dad's like, he's like, you know what? He's like, he goes, you should be a chiropractor. He's like, it's like being a doctor, but you don't have to go through the same schooling. You're going to make a ton of money. And so that's what I went into it. I'm like, yeah, this is great. And I didn't really think things out. I just went and did it, and that was it.
Now, did you go to Palmer College?
No, no, I started off at National, hated it, dropped out, and then I went to New York College of Chiropractic is where I got my degree
Are you
from.
from New York?
Yeah,
Okay, what part? Upstate or the city?
towards like Buffalo, Niagara Falls.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, my wife's from Saratoga Springs.
Mm,
I went up there finally for the first time a year and a half ago, and wow, what an amazing place it is! Really
yeah,
cool up there. And I
that's
had
where my
no
roommate
idea
was from.
there's. Yeah, really. I just
Yeah,
talked to a guy yesterday on another meeting that I was on, and he's from Saratoga Springs, and he's an iboga shaman. And I'm like, dude, there's not that many people in Saratoga Springs. Like, it's not a very big place for the amount of talent and
yes,
education people that come out of there. I think there's something in the water. You know how that state park has those baths? That's I took one of
oh yeah,
those with the mineral water. I don't know. It must be
yeah,
doing something right. But no, I know exactly what you mean. Resistant to the things that work, right? We want to keep doing the same things over and over, even though they're not working for us at all. And then we try something like you did with the food, and you're like, nah, that wasn't it. It's like those videos where the guy's talking to the woman and she's got a nail in her head, and it's like, my head's hurting. It's really pounding. I don't know what's going on. They're like, maybe it's the nail in your head. No, it's not the nail in my head. It's
yeah,
obviously not the nail in my head,
yeah,
but it's killing me. Can you do something for me? And we get so fixated on what we think we know, and we're not even open to suggestions until you get to the point where you're just over it and you can't do anything else. And then you're like, okay, somebody show me something I've never seen before. I'll try anything,
yeah. I'll do it. Yeah, you
back
got to
pain is,
you have to hit that rock bottom. I think, and I'm
yeah,
all of the rock bottoms that I've hit. Like I tell people, I'm like, I am grateful for suffering for that long. I am grateful for herniating my disc, like because I don't think that it would have driven me as far as I've come without it. I wouldn't be that same
yeah,
person.
you were trying to heal yourself, but also then you got stoked about everything you were learning and finding out. So you're like, I can use this on other people and heal them
Yeah,
too. And you're like, yes, 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 yes. Because you also can empathize with the amount of pain that I deal with in my back, which I have the same. I don't know. I think there's literally just no discs left in my back. It's just all spine on spine, which I don't know. Maybe you can help me with that too. I know I'm thinking stem cells is probably my best bet.
yeah.
But
I mean, with me, like stuff like that, like when people go to bring in their MRIs or whatever, like for the most part, like I don't really even care about that stuff. Like, I work so much on the soft tissue, and I'm like, if we can loosen this fascia and the soft tissue, that it makes space for stuff. And so now, like, there's a little bit of breathing room, and just even having a little bit of breathing room, that makes all the difference in the world in terms of people's pain.
that's true. And isn't it like the fascia is like the skin of a turkey or something, where it takes the form of the body that stays in that position for a long period of time, and so the body won't reform itself until the fascia is removed and allowed to breathe and to make space to be able to readjust the muscle and the body underneath it. Is that right? Is that how it
Yeah,
works?
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
so
kind of yeah. It's more like I don't know. It's kind of like a bag almost.
yeah, just a saran wrap over the body, right? So you just got to pull it off and then like let it go fix itself and then let it go back. But it won't work. It doesn't work unless you fix the fascia, right?
Yep, yep. That's what I found. I'm like, even if I tell people, like, even if you come in with a big toe injury, like I'm gonna treat your entire body. Like instead of like that's what happens is that everybody just sits there like, yep, yep, that big toe is all screwed up. I'm like, let's take a look at the ankle. Let's take a look at the knee. I'm gonna take a look at the hip. What's that opposite shoulder doing? What's your neck doing? Like that's the stuff that I'm interested in.
Yeah. Well, nothing in the body works independently, which is why I think it's a crazy concept that we always think, oh, I have restless leg syndrome. I need to do something about my legs. No, it's not coming from your legs. You only have one computer running
Yeah,
everything. It's probably in your brain, and it's like now they give away SSRIs like candy, and those things don't even, but we already know serotonin isn't created in the brain at all. So it's very
yeah,
confusing to me why
yeah. It's
we
like
on the hands.
80% of it comes from the gut.
Yes. And so here we are giving people stuff that's ruining their gut, but also supposed to. Have you seen the commercials for the people who develop twitches from SSRIs?
I haven't. But we don't have like regular TV. Like we'll go home from time to time and visit family or whatever. That's when I'll see the commercials and I'm like, did you see that? Like,
Oh,
did you?
oh,
Oh my
it's
God.
this one is for people like, and it starts off with a kid saying, Mommy, you don't twitch anymore. Your face isn't twitching and your mouth isn't moving. And she's like, I found this new drug that helps me with all the side effects of the SSRI. And guess what the side effects of the drug are? Anxiety, depression, and suicidal tendencies. And I was like,
Oh,
nobody
oh
sees the
god.
wheel of fortune here that everyone's just sitting there racking it on. I mean, why not just stop taking the medication that's causing it? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
It
So
hurts my brain. It hurts my
it,
brain.
it doesn't seem logical, but so many people do it anyway. And I guess they need a reason or whatever. But I love that you don't even care about the MRIs and stuff. I mean, it's to me, it's more about understanding the body and how to make it work. And obviously, as somebody who's practiced, yoga, meditation, breath work for my whole life and has traveled the world learning from as many people as I could possibly learn from. And that's why we're here today, because I want to learn from you as well. And I want to share you with my audience. But, you've got to really like understand that you can't just fix a piece of the body. You have to fix the whole thing or not. It's either broken or working. Either way, it's
Totally.
you can't just go in and all right, I want this to go away. But everything is connected. Don't people remember that song, the hip bones connect to the whatever
Yeah.
it's? I thought that was supposed to teach people that we're all one piece of equipment.
With that, and I always tell people, I'm like, you got to think about this stuff like an engineer. You got to keep asking yourself why, and keep asking why until you back yourself into a corner, and then keep asking why, like after that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, how many people have you had with gluten intolerances and such now when you that have come in and it's like, hey doc, I want you to adjust me, and you're like, well, what's happening? And then you go, actually, you're gonna need to fix your eating before you can do anything for it.
I mean, those patients are typically the ones they're coming in like, I feel like you can see that stuff from like a mile away. Like it's typically they got joint pain on both sides. Like, so that starts like cluing me into like, hey, this is obviously some systemic thing. Like, and the people come in and I'll say, you know what, it could be physical, it could be chemical, it could be that combination, sometimes even emotional. But let's just start with the physical. And then like if we're not making any headway, then I'm like, hey man, like maybe you might want to kind of think about like, your diet. And that's when like it's always that deer in the headlight. Well, no, like I think I'd rather get an injection or whatever. But every so often, somebody takes the bait and they'll say, you know what, like I'll give it a try. And it's always like it's always a really good thing. Or sometimes they'll disappear and then they'll come back like a year later on. I'm like, oh my God, what happened to you? And they're like, I still continue to get injections and try all this other shit after you. And then all of a sudden I remembered what you were saying. And so I cut it out and everything went away.
Well, good. I'm glad that you finally listened. It's true though. You're right. So 1,000 referrals in a year got to be some kind of record, isn't it? That's like an amazing amount of word of mouth referrals to any business. And were these people how long ago did that happen? And like, has your business started out from the beginning always being like that, or is it something
No,
that's
no, no,
progressively?
no. No, I mean, I was like seeing like, a handful of patients a day, like everything was dead. It was like my very first, office. I was advertising on placemats from the diner 2 doors down. Um, and here I am, I'm doing this soft tissue technique, and I'm starting to treat more athletes. And this dude calls me up from the local newspaper and he's like, hey, I wanted to do a story on you. And I thought it was like at the time I'm answering phones too. So like I had all these people like trying to sell me stuff or whatever. And so like, yeah, right. Like, all right, what are you trying to sell? He's like, no, I want to do a story. And so, I told my wife and she's like, all right, he's trying to sell you something. So long story short, he did like a 2-page story on myself in the newspaper here, and that was it. It was like we had people coming from like 2 hours away, and even for 10 years later on, because we continued 1,000 word of mouth patients until I sold that office about 2 weeks before COVID. And so I opened up in 2007. They wrote the article in about 2008. So for years, I was getting that type. And so yeah, people were coming from like 2 hours away, and even 10 years later, like these little old ladies, they would pull the article out of their purse and they'd say, "I always knew that I would need you. I always knew that this would need to happen." And after about a year of doing that, a lot of people from some of the further away areas were just like, hey, if you could just open up a satellite office to us closer, we'll fill it. And so I rented a tiny little room and it exploded. And that's that.
Wow. So did you sell the practice now? Is it still yours? Do you still work
I
there?
uh I sold the original one. I sold that about 2 weeks before COVID because I like I thought I knew what I wanted in life. We had two offices. They were jamming. I was the first, or I'm sorry, yeah, the first chiropractor, first whole body cryotherapy in all of South Carolina. We were the seventh one in the nation. So we had a whole body cryotherapy. We had all this stuff kind of going on. I was killing it. I bought this beautiful house in the countryside here. It was expensive, and it was taking me like an hour and a half to get to each office. And I had three little kids, and all of a sudden, we closed on the house, and it was maybe about 6 months later. It's like 13 acres on the water, and I'm like looking around. I'm like, this is all mine. I'm like, well, shit. In 30 years, like after you pay for it, and I'm like, well, this is all mine. I'm like, yeah, man, but you got to pay your taxes and you got to pay your HOA. And then all of a sudden I was like, I'm like, what are you doing, you idiot? Like,
Mhm.
you're going to, 30 years is going to go by and you're going to say, what happened to my life? And so,
Yep.
I went to my wife and I was like, dude, we got to sell this house. And she's like, we just bought this house. We moved heaven and earth to get this house. Are you retarded? And so it took us like 2 years to sell that house. It took us a couple years to sell that office, and everything. It took a long time to make happen. But I had this dream, this goal of like simplifying my life, and so that was the start of it right there.
I tell you what, you're right, man. There's no currency that is valuable in this world other than time. And you can't get back the time, but everybody makes themselves a slave to the things that they have. But I know, like, I was in that same boat where I worked 6, sometimes 7 days a week to pay for said lifestyle that I never enjoyed. I felt like a sponsor, really. So, I mean, it was like, why am I donating all this money to these people that I never get to see? Any, I mean, they were my kids and my wife at the time, but
Yeah,
whatever. To me, it was like I didn't get to see them. I don't get to go to any events, and I didn't even get to enjoy the house or the place. And so I was like, this is dumb. Why don't we just scale everything back down to nothing so that we can afford to live and have time? And that's what's what I've done too. Is I've just said, you know what, I want simple, I want easy, and I want my time to be
yeah,
mine. So that way I'm not a slave to the system. I don't have any debt. I don't work around, you know what I mean? Like that's just I don't buy the fanciest new
yeah.
things. Just
I
one of
mean,
those people that just has enough stuff to get by. And then I travel a lot. Been to 55
yeah,
countries.
and
So
that's huge for your health. Like when you're just like constantly in that like, like it's hard.
I also invest a lot of money now in taking care of myself versus before where I would invest a lot of money, not invest, spend a lot of money
No,
on things
it's an
that
investment.
I mean, it was an investment in the wrong type of
Oh, well,
investment, but
well,
still an
I mean,
investment.
investing in yourself.
Yeah, no, that part is an investment. The
Yeah,
money I spent on frivolous drinking and stuff like that was not an
I
investment
gotcha.
in good life. So that's why like I switched it and went, what if I put half of the drinking money into
Yeah,
health? And my story was I was the Veterans Administration had me on 11 different pills at 30 years old, and I was getting, really out of shape. I was super unhealthy. And then finally my doctor said to me, "You're a hopeless case," at the VA. That's what he said. He was a shrink. And I was like, is there a punchline? Are you going to follow that with something educational, or is it, like, and it was like, I'm hoping he's joking, right? Like, who tells
yeah,
somebody they're a hopeless case? So, I said, listen, I'm not taking any more of these pills ever again. And he's like, you can't get off of them. You're not allowed to do that. You'll die, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, cool. Watch this. So I quit that day. And then I started studying like grassroots living for a human being. What does it take for us to survive? How do we learn live off the land? What do we do? What do we eat normally? 100 years ago, what was it like? And 500 years ago. And then, I started to realize that, we're hunters and gatherers, which meant we ate whatever we could find, just like we were supposed to. And then every now and then we kill something and get a lot of protein, so we'd eat it. But we didn't have animals 3, 4 times a day. We didn't have the influx of dairy and all these other things. And once I started eliminating them, my body just started reshaping itself. And eventually I lost so much weight that I was too skinny because I was like, oh, whoops, got a little carried away. Let me go ahead and put some muscle back on. So learned a whole bunch about a whole lot of things that, watching videos. Took me about 7 months to fully detox out all the drugs that were given to me, because they were. And, I'm really lucky to be alive because of that, because I mean, you start mixing Depakote and lithium and Adderall and clonazepam and Ambien. And like, these are the things at 30 years old that I was taking. I was like, this can't be what life is about. Now I don't take any of those things. And, I guess 1% of people get off of SSRIs, only 1%. And I was like, well, that just shows you how, how special I am.
yeah,
But it was just a crazy journey. But I think, have to invest in yourself. You've got to get outside your comfort zone. I mean, that's how I got into yoga. Was I was looking for a solution to avoid neck surgery.
mhm,
And so they wanted to operate on my neck and put 2 rubber discs with a ball bearing to hold up my head. And I was like, nope, what's another option? Because that one's not on the table.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, if you can increase your core strength and create good mobility, you could buy yourself 5 years. Technology may change. And that was 20 years ago. And I'm still going. And so,
That is
I went and
amazing.
I Googled the terms core strength, mobility in your spine, yoga. Okay, check. I got it. I went to yoga I committed for 90 days and was like, I'll just do it for 90 days. And if it works, great.
Yeah.
If not, no big deal. And that was 20 years ago. And so, like, but that first step going into a yoga studio is more difficult for men to do than it is to get somebody to go into a UFC fight, because I've done both. And I invite people to go fight with me and they're happy to do it, even though they're going to get punched in the face. But I invite them to yoga and there's no way they are going to show up there because they think it's about flexibility. And I'm like, yeah, okay, right on. We can't, I don't know what to say. So I agree with you. I think you've got to get to a point where you're fed up enough to go search for your own information and find the real stuff, because
Yeah.
it's too easy these days to rely on other people and think that they've got this magic cure for you. But there's not a single drug on the market that's curing anybody. They're all just making patients out of people. So I'm like,
Customers.
that's not something I should follow. That's not I mean, good business model, terrible for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
It was some
so
CEO years ago was like, curing people is bad for business.
it is bad for business. What are you going to do with them after they're cured? I mean, we're the worst people you could ever ask for because we don't really need any of that stuff. So we're like, no, 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 thanks. No, I don't want it. But also at the same time, like, there are ways to heal the body without having to put anything chemical in it. Arguably, it's the only way to really heal the body. Nothing that, if it didn't start out in our system, if it's not part of the stardust that we are, then why would we put it in there thinking it's going
Yeah.
to fix something? And I
And
mean,
it's
I'm all for pain management and that kind of stuff when you really need it. But I don't see the everyday cycle of taking stuff that's not really supposed to be in you.
Yeah,
And
and
I
it's
don't
it's
get it.
not rocket science if you take that step back. It's all like basic stuff. It's all the stuff that that you really, deep down like need to do, but just, nobody wants to do it because it's kind of uncomfortable at first.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that Americans are afraid of is inconvenience. And, not being able to ever eat fast food again is very inconvenient. People are like, you don't eat fast food. I go, no, not at all. They go, not even Chick-fil-A. I go, especially not Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has 42 ingredients in a chicken sandwich and it has 2 drive-through lanes. What about that doesn't say fast food to you? Like,
Yeah.
but they always laugh at how funny it is that people are like, not even Chick-fil-A, like that's some sort of healthy alternative.
It's
And I
chicken.
and
Duh.
they're like, so what do you eat? And I'm like, I don't know. I cook food. They're like, you cook? I've never been in my kitchen except I heat stuff up. And I'm like, wonder where your problem is.
That's so
Maybe we should
weird.
get back. What is the number one tip you'd give somebody? And what's the craziest thing you've ever healed that you didn't think you were going to be able to heal?
Number one tip that I give everybody is practice the ass to grass squat. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on health hacks, doing stuff for my body, but I did the squat challenge about 15 years ago, and it was life changing. It was easily one of my top three things I've ever done for my body. So, I'm
Yeah.
like, I tell people, I'm like, man, you're getting ankle mobility, knee, hip, spine, both sides. And you don't even have to take time out of your day. Like, read your fucking email, watch TV, tie your shoes like that. I'm like, you don't even have to take extra time and you'll move better. You'll feel better. Everything will get better if you get good at doing that, and soft tissue adapts to stresses that you place on over time. So eventually it will happen.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. I read an article the other day that said that the strength of your quads and your glutes is equivalent to the brain health you'll have 10 years later. And there's probably nowhere near enough information out there about how important it is to maintain a strong, base, I guess you could say, but also like your psoas, your core. I mean, yogi squat is where I teach from, work from, hang out in, and I mean, some people think it's a little awkward because I'm just sitting there in this like, ass to grass squat with my hands and knees, pushing the knees out, aligning everything. But man, it's how you keep things open and strong. It's how you get stable. Your core won't get in tighter if you don't strengthen the entire supporting system around it. So you can do all the sit-ups you want, which aren't very good for you, in my opinion. Planking would be far better. But
I mean, even in terms of mobility, I don't do a ton of stretching, but I do focus on like calisthenics stuff like that, but just even kind of hanging out in that position. And I started picking up. It's not the smartest idea at 48, but I picked up Brazilian jiu-jitsu a couple of years ago, and all the young guys are always like, "Man, you're so flexible. Like, what do you do?" And I'm like, "I squat. I hang out in the squat." They're like, "No, no, no. Like, what do you do?" And I'm like, "That. I just get good at that."
BJJ, man, that's a great community. It's a really good group of guys to be around. I mean, they certainly are. The camaraderie is there, but boy, does it take its toll on your body over time. It's certainly it can, at least. It doesn't have to. You're right.
It can,
But
it can, it
and
can,
at
and
48,
that's what I've learned is to not be a maverick. Like, I'm like, I don't care, I'll tap. Like,
yeah,
you win.
yeah, exactly. You're
I
not.
got
There's
nothing to
not a
prove.
$1 million purse on the line, so you're
Yeah,
like, yeah, that hurts. Get off me.
yep,
Like,
you're
leave me
good.
alone.
You
That's
got it,
funny.
buddy.
48 years old. That's not too bad, man. We're the same age, so we're still doing fine. As long as we
Yeah,
can get
man.
out and do stuff and play with the kids and I don't need to run a marathon, but I certainly should be able to run to the bathroom. Like
Yeah,
these are the kind of things like simplicity. I always teach people too. I'm like, mobility and flexibility are not difficult to do. You don't have to like get on a mat and do this whole routine. You can just do 5 little things each day. And I would argue squatting would be definitely one of the top list items because you don't realize how much it takes of your body, your whole body, to do a proper squat. Like
yeah.
there's a lot of muscles got to engage properly and a lot of things that have to happen, but
Just
mobility
even
is
hanging
huge.
out at the bottom, even hanging out at the bottom. This I remember, so 20 something years ago, I got to go to China, Hong Kong, and I'm shopping and I'm walking by and there'd be like an 80-year-old dude sitting on the street, like in the deep, acid grass squat, like reading a newspaper. And I'm walking by and I'm coming back a couple hours later. He's still just kind of hanging out, same position. I'm like, what the heck? Here, like I'll get 8, 9-year olds. I'm like, hey, let me see your squat. They're like, they fall over.
They lean too far forward. Exactly. Well, I mean, it's one of those things too, like over in Asia and that side of the world, a lot of, I don't know if you've ever gone to the bathroom in those places, but having a really solid yogi squat is a great thing over there because they don't have
Yeah.
there's no toilets in there. It's just a hole in the floor and you just have to hold it. And I'm like, man, I'm so glad I have flexibility and mobility in my hips right now because otherwise I'd be that guy that's like shaking because I can't hold the muscle. And I'm like, I am really glad I trained for this my whole life. I didn't know I was, but I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
It's quite the experience. So yeah, I would say that's a great tip. Now, what's the one thing that's been like the oddest thing you've learned that's been very successful at fixing things? Because I watched like the cheek and the thing that you did. That's pretty crazy stuff. I mean, but ironically, after I saw it, like 30 other things popped up on Instagram that were similar.
Yeah, I mean that was a huge one. Years ago. So the reason why I started like looking at that years ago, probably about 15 years ago, I came across this device on Facebook. It was called the Sterecta. It was out of Italy, and so it was like a jaw piece or this mouthpiece that you wear inside, and it kind of decompresses the jaw. And so it's basically like if you have bad posture, it's going to fix your posture. If you have back pain, it's going to fix your pain. If you're ugly, it's going to fix you, right?
Yeah,
Because these imbalances in your jaw are going to straighten your face out. And I'm like, this is kind of interesting. Like, all right, $100, I'll check it out. And
yeah,
so
for
I
sure.
buy it, and I bought a couple of them to play with, and it came with a book. And I'm reading the book, and it was written by honestly, it was written by a 25-year-old. And so honestly, my brain was like, there's no way in hell that this dude came up with this shit himself, that he stole that from somewhere. So I started hitting up Google patents, and I started coming across all of these patents for these dentists where they were coming up with these custom mouth guards for professional athletes and selling them to these professional athletes for like $5,000 a pop to improve their performance. And so I was like, all right, all right. Well, we learn about the pterygoid in active release. Like, let me pop a glove on. And so I'm starting to work on these little old ladies. I'm like working in here. Their eyes are watering. And then afterwards, boom, you see their hamstring go up by like 30 degrees. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? And so that was where it started kind of, starting with that stuff.
Now, is that something that's really good for like TMJ or for people who have like? Because I was watching something the other day about how much we clench our teeth on top of each other, and that's why the teeth get shattered and broken. And it's not even a conscious thing. It's like it's just tension or stress, but there's
It's
ways
a,
you
it's
can
a
remove
it's
it.
a wired software program, basically. So like I always tell people, like the only time that your teeth should be touching is when you're eating. That's it. So aside from that, like I really focus on jaw posture. I try to keep my jaw relaxed. I try to push my teeth forward so that my teeth are in line with each other, but just, kind of relaxed. And even throughout the day, I like open up my mouth and I wiggle my jaw back and forth just to kind of get some blood flow in there. But the more we do some type of cheat, because one of my cheats for my core, this is one of the things that was causing my back issues, is I would grit my jaw down really hard, like if I was working out. And so, but that would give me that strength of those core muscles, but it's not, my core muscles were weak, but I was cheating with my jaw. And so the more you learn to cheat, the more automatically you're doing it all day long. So you're creating a software program where the brain's like, well, it's a lot easier if we just grit the jaw down. And then late at night, soft tissue cools down. So that tight guy gets 10 times as tight. And then you start gritting your jaw, and your dentist is like, hey man, you're blowing your teeth out, put this mouth guard in. And so that's just kind of duct taping. It's not really fixing it. So starting in there, breaking up some of the scar tissue with that pterygoid move, better jaw posture throughout the day, just even being aware of it, even like when you're working out is huge.
Yeah, that's a big part of it. I think when you go to sleep at night, you think that things are gonna relax, but they don't. They actually tighten. And I don't know about you, but man, I feel great all day. And then after I go to bed, I'll wake up the next day and go, what in the heck? And I mean, I went to sleep. How did I damage myself so badly? But it's subconscious mind takes over, and you're not in control it, so you can't really make your technique be good. You can't really, that
So,
kind of
so
thing.
honestly, I talk to patients about that every single day. I'm like, that's honestly a superpower. Is how you should look at that, because like when you're moving, like the tissue's nice and warm and loosey goosey. You got blood flow going into all that soft tissue, and then movement neurologically shuts off pain. So like you're typically going to feel pretty good when you're moving, and but it's like drinking. Right. You drink 7, 8 drinks, and it's not till like 8 hours later on, you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm going to die. Right. But things would go a little bit different if, like, let's say on that fifth drink, you just started barfing like right away. Like, obviously, you're not going to carry on, towards that like fifth drink. So with us, we'll sit there and we'll do stuff, we're doing these workouts and things kind of feel nice and loosey goosey. You feel pretty good, but you don't really necessarily see the effects of that till later on that night, the next morning, or during those rest periods. Like if you do some workout and it feels good, but then later on that night, you can't get off the couch, that tells you that you probably pissed that off. You should probably dial that back just a little bit. And so that's what I do is, first thing in the morning, I'm like scanning things. And I'm like, all right, my knee hurts, but it feels a little bit better by the time I get coffee, by the time I take a shower. And then it goes away. But then the next morning, I'm starting to feel that. So that's already signaling to my brain, hey, man, pay attention to that. Fix whatever that is. Stay on top of that instead of waiting till it blows up in my face. And I'm like, oh my God, now I tore my meniscus.
Yeah, exactly. We're like surprised, even though we knew we've been avoiding that for it's like when your car makes a funny noise and you're driving, you're like, oh, it'll be fine. No, it'll be
Yeah.
fine. I don't need to change
Yeah.
the oil. I haven't checked. And
Yeah.
3,000 miles go by and all of a sudden seizes up and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe my car broke down. What am I gonna do now? This is terrible. What am I, and you're like, nobody wants to remember all the days you went, no, I probably should stop and get my car going, but I didn't. So now it's like, oh no, it's the car's fault. Gotta get a new car. And I feel like that's such a truth too. You've got to really find it in yourself to start listening to yourself and your body and like self-evaluating, like actually sitting in the morning. I call it meditation. Some people call it whatever they want, but you got to sit and listen to you tell you what is going on with you. Like that's the only way to, and nobody else can do that for you. So like is if you don't sit still and have a quiet mind, then you're never going to hear yourself and therefore you're never going to be able to fix yourself. It pains me to see so many people out there these days walking around as in to quote a documentary that changed my life, fat, sick, and nearly dead. And they
Yeah.
have no idea that there's an alternative way to live. And if you suggest it to them, most people think, I don't know if you're familiar with Ayurvedic medicine and eating, but blood type eating is something that's a big thing. And so I found out that, people go, hey, I want to be like you. I want to look like you. You've got abs at 48 years old and you're all fit and stuff. I go, great. Well, you got to quit eating meat altogether today. And they go, oh, I can't do that. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, then you're probably not going to be okay on this program because you got to be willing to give up whatever it is that does not agree with you. And for me, that was an A positive blood type. Turns out that I'm not supposed to eat red meat or any type of pork or any, I mean, I don't think anybody should eat pork, but I only eat seafood, which is something that Ayurvedic does say I'm supposed to eat. And I was like I had worked my way into exactly the right diet for myself before knowing what it was as a blood type. And then when I checked it, it was like, oh, validation.
You're
Like,
like,
look at that.
ding
I mean,
ding.
And
Yeah.
yeah, all of a sudden I was like, okay, nailed it. Now I'm moving on. What's the next thing I can do? And so it's like, we've got to get back to that point of remembering that, we didn't always have fast food restaurants. We didn't have accessible food all the time. And we certainly didn't have food like substances or food like products out there that are taste great but have no nutritional value because I get it. I love Chipotle, but that stuff doesn't do anything for me except make me hungry again. So kind of empty calories.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually, like if you eat healthy enough, if you're eating just, if you're making your own food, like that stuff, it totally changes your taste buds. So now you go to eat that stuff, you're like, man, that's all I taste is all the chemicals in there. Like it just doesn't taste normal.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Once you get healthy and you actually know what you're supposed to eat, and I don't know about my latest thing is I'm a fruit bat. I can't eat enough fruit, and I literally have buckets of fruit all around everywhere, and I just eat it all throughout the day. What does that mean about my body? I don't know. I haven't even looked it up yet, but I'm sure there's something about my gut that's craving fruit for some reason or hydration or whatnot. So it's like, but I can now understand and think, okay, there's a reason for this. It's not just like I don't crave candy bars. I don't crave sugar. I don't crave processed foods. I crave organic fruit.
Yeah.
All of it. I don't care give me a fruit. I don't care what fruit it is. Just give it to me and I'll eat it. All of it. And so, I'm probably putting down a pound or two of fruit a day each day because it's just really what agrees with me. And I eat at least a half a dozen apples a day and that's not because an apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's just
Yeah.
I love apples. So see, it's good for you. Maybe you know something about it. Maybe fruit's a good thing, or maybe I'm lacking something in my diet.
Yeah, no, I think fruit can be a great thing. I think you gotta always play around. Like just depends on like where your diet is, where you are, where your health is. Try something. If it doesn't make you feel better, then obviously you got to switch it out again.
Yeah, keep
Like
going,
you
right?
came across something that is working for you, and that's what you have to do. You have to play and see how your gut bacteria enjoy that stuff, because everybody's just biochemically unique. One person might have the gut bacteria where they can recycle B vitamins, and they're fine being like being vegan. Another person might not be able to. They can't necessarily they don't have the gut bacteria to recycle B vitamins, and so they might be fine for a while, but might tank them. But it's really comes down to, again, we're just all biochemically unique.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. And blood type is a good way to go. Looking at stuff, Vedic, doshas. But the once I learned about that, I was like, and that's the thing too. I tell people all the time, like, I'm not somebody who doesn't eat meat, and thinks everybody else should follow my lead. I'm just telling you what works for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a great way to start. Do I think that people need to eat meat every day, 3 times a day? No, absolutely not. I don't think we have the digestive tract for that. But also, like, if it works for you and you want to be keto and do your all meat all day, every day thing, okay, like more power to you. But I seem to think that like everything in life, the universe, the earth, the rotation of everything has to be in balance. And balance is the key. So being extreme on any level means you're out of balance. And therefore, the whole carnivore diet is not in balance. There's just nothing about it in balance. Why would we all of a sudden eat nothing but animals when we've been for eons have been eating off the earth too? We have to eat nuts, legumes, berries, things from the ground. That's what we found when we were hunters and gatherers. We were terrible hunters. Now, now we're just really good at it. Apparently, Publix makes it easy, right? Or in your
Yeah.
world, Piggly Wiggly. I love Piggly Wiggly. This is my favorite store. So, what's the coolest thing you've ever had happen in your place at your work that was like even surprised you when you fixed somebody for something that they came in for? There's got to be a situation that pops out in your head where you were like, wow, that was incredible. Like just an
I
eye
mean,
opener.
we get so many of those. I mean, honestly, that happens all the time. Like I had some guy flew in from Fort Myers, and so he's got radiating pain down both of his legs, and he's passing like I don't know how many chiropractors. He came in for some soft wave. It's basically a type of shockwave therapy that we do. And so, I'm working on all the fascia, the soft tissue, I'm zapping them or whatever. And then he comes back in like a month later on and just like, he's got feeling in his legs. It's not shooting all the way down. But like, I see that stuff all the time. We had a guy where he was supposed to get his ankle fused and he's on the operating table and they do a last minute scan and they're basically like, they're basically like the bone is dying. We can't do the fusion because the bone is dying off. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna amputate your foot. And so
What?
and so he's like, he goes, I'm like lying here, I'm getting ready to like, go under. And then they tell me that. And he's like, hell no. And so he's like, I got up off the table. He goes, the procedure was about to happen. He's like, I got off the table. He's like, no, you are not doing that to me. And so he comes in to see me, and his ankle is like the size of a softball. In this case, I was throwing some shockwave, at him. Like, we got to flush out like some of this inflammation. We got to kind of change this on a cellular level. But I wasn't I didn't think that it was going to work. I saw a couple of studies that said that it might work. And so we did it, and he comes back in. We did about 3 sessions, comes back in. He goes, I saw the same orthopedic surgeon, and he was like, we can actually do the surgery now because you got enough blood flow to the ankle.
Wow. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's all these little things like that. With I was telling you earlier about my Atlas appointment. Like I felt like somebody had put a torch when I sat up after they fixed my Atlas bone. It felt like someone had a torch to my neck. It was so hot, and because the blood had not circulated,
Yeah.
and he explained to me and took the X-rays and showed my me now straight, and he was explaining to me how the vagus nerve is your detoxification of your brain. That's how it feeds your nervous system that recycles all of your. And I'm like, so that's just been shut down. It's just been closed. And I had problems swallowing, breathing, everything. I mean, it just took away my whole life. And then all of a sudden it was back, and I could see straight. I wasn't dizzy. And it was like, okay, now I can start to work on myself from another position of power or from a position
Sure.
of understanding. And it was such a simple little thing, but I think that's a really good point. So the soft tissue thing that you're using, what is that like? Is that something that you just do in the clinic, or is it something you can do at home?
That's just something that we do in the clinic. It's a really expensive shockwave device. But it's kind of cool. It's a heat-seeking missile for like damaged tissue. So like if the tissue is healthy, like you don't feel anything. So like you're just moving around. If you get to somebody inflamed, degenerated, anything screwed up, it feels like you're being wrapped with a ball peen hammer. It's like bam, 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 bam. And you're like holding on for dear life. And then about a minute or two later, you're like, oh, you know what? Like maybe I'm getting used to it. And what's happening is your body is freaking out and pumping stem cells and anti-inflammatory molecules, and it's growing new blood vessels. And it does it for about 8 weeks after every treatment. So it's kind of like my nuclear option.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful and like a good thing to do. I mean, I certainly can agree. I tried a PEMF. Is that right? It's called Pulse
Yeah,
Electromagnetic.
yeah. I've played
I
with
saw.
those.
I was hired to come down to the Biohacker World Expo in South Beach, which, man,
Oh,
a lot of
sweet.
cool technology, a lot of
Yeah.
cool stuff, but also like that kind of stuff is just it's fascinating to me because I know we're all frequency, we're all vibration, we're all not real matter, we're actually just a lot of space. But it's like there's a lot of different ways to alter yourself using sound, frequency, these types of things, but yet nobody believes in it. But everybody believes in Wi-Fi. I don't understand. I'm like, what? Do you see the Wi-Fi? No, I don't see it, but it works, right? Yeah, it works. But you don't want to try this? No, I don't want to try it. Okay. I don't know
I
what
mean,
to tell
I,
you.
I think I think with people like I used to be quite the naysayer with that stuff, and I think when you experience it, if you experience the right therapy, it blows you out of the water, it's kind of like, all right, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Like,
I,
I think you have to be comfortable in life, because a lot of times we take these stands, and I think you have to be just comfortable enough to come back and say, you know what, I was wrong, and that's okay because that's how I'm going to grow. That's how I'm going to learn more. So, like, I have screwed up like I don't know how many times, like throughout life and career and stuff like that. But as long as I'm learning throughout the entire process, like that's huge.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the one thing I think we could take away from this conversation and any conversation is if your ego is not letting you admit you're wrong, then I can guarantee you that you're missing so many opportunities because of the fact that all you got to do is go, hey, you know what? I'm open to new ideas. And boy, wouldn't our society be a different place if people were not so dead set on being right, even if they don't know they're right? Like, I mean, that's the other thing is like you're only right from your perspective, but you might not even be right from your perspective now because you're just standing on the idea that it's not even principle. It's just the idea that you don't want to be wrong.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
the older I get, the more I realize that I don't really know anything at all, and that I need to listen to everyone. And that's why we're having this talk today because I'm like, there are people out there that know stuff that I don't know, and I want to know what they know because I
Oh, for
obviously don't
sure.
know anything. So
Yeah,
it's like, hey, you're the master of this world. Teach me. Like, I'm
totally,
happy to tell
totally.
you that I don't know anything. That's what I tell people. I don't know anything.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the greatest thing about, at least over the past 20 years that I've been doing this, it's just we have, so much access to, other people's knowledge. And, again, that's what I tell people is my favorite thing is to find somebody that claims that they have all of the answers. Fine, go and like suck all the goodness out of that and then use it and try it and then find somebody else and grab all of that stuff and use it and
Yeah.
try it and experiment. And it's awesome. It's addictive.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to do it. It makes so much sense. I mean, we all can't know everything, but you can know people who do know pieces of everything. And if after a while you know enough people, especially if you surround yourself with people that are actually doing things and making a difference. I used to teach my kids, whatever you want to be in life, go find somebody who's already successful at it and do what they do. They've already figured it out. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Just go put yourself next to them. Tell them you'll watch them, you'll help them, you'll carry their bags, whatever. You'll learn how to be successful from successful people
A
and
million percent.
whatever your definition of success is. And for me, my definition now is the amount of people that I'm able to help have a better life while I'm here. So that's how I define success, not titles, money, but how many people can I help? That's what I want to do. So,
Yeah.
like, but I also did what you did, and I went out and found as many people that were wiser than I was and said, "Hey, teach me everything you know. I'm a moron. Like, give me the info." Like, and so after time, you start really grabbing a bunch of information, and then as you do, you're like, now I just have way more questions than I do answers. And so it's like, that's ultimately what happens, right? Because the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know
Yeah.
anything, and then
Yep.
there's this whole vicious wheel of now you got to go down the rabbit hole at 2 a.m. of, should I click this button? I know it's going to leave me up for the next 6 hours doing research, but it might help people live a happier, healthier life or make my life better. So I think that's a huge thing. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today and talking, man. Clearly, I want to come up and see you in Charleston. First of all, I'm coming up there anyway next month. So I'm going to have to
Definitely.
come up and visit you. But give us all your info so people can find you, know you, all the other things, and tell them how they can contact you before we sign off.
I'm younger you doc on pretty much all the platforms. So you can reach out to me there, drop me a DM. If you're ever in Charleston, fixyourpaincharleston.com is my website. I just finished shooting a class this weekend, kind of teaching some of the weird stuff that I'm starting to do. That's what I finally decided is that I've got to teach people how to do some of this stuff on their own because that's honestly that's some of the best reward of being able to create content like this is I'll get these DMs or I get these comments like, oh my God, like I rubbed here and then my shoulder got better. Like, what the hell? That's amazing. Thank you so much. And from, being being a hands-on healer, just to be able to fix somebody on the other side of the planet like that without even touching them, just by giving them knowledge, man, that's awesome. So
You sure you
I
don't want to
definitely
profit
say,
off that? You don't want to charge people for all that knowledge you got? I mean, that seems to be a common thing these days. So hey,
and that's what, like I give a lot of that stuff away for free, but like I mean, honestly, even in terms of the class that, I just bought or that I just designed, I want to I'm going to charge for it, but it's like going to be like 20-30 bucks. Like I'm not going to gatekeep, I want
let's
somebody
stop
to buy this
charging.
and just say, you know what? Like, I don't care.
I think it's important that people pay some money for every information they get because if you don't invest money into it, then you don't take it seriously. And so to me, it's the same way. I would love to give all my stuff away for free, classes, workshops, everything else. But if I do, it devalues it completely. And also, nobody invests themselves into it. I want people who are serious, who are willing to put up a little bit of money, and I'll charge half the rate. And if someone calls me and says, I don't have enough money, but all I have is $10, I'm happy to take it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
just want you to invest in yourself. I just want you to have some skin in the game. So I know you're serious, and so I think
It's
that's
super
great.
important.
20, $30 for what is nothing. You could charge 50 and you'd still be doing a great deed for everybody. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
kudos to you. I can't wait to hear about it. I'm going to be a part of it and I'm coming up. I'm coming to see you. So
Yeah.
I'll probably have to get on the schedule now, huh? You got to be booked out at least a month or so.
We discharge so many people, like it's always kind of churning and burning. Like today, half my schedule was open, and then by like 9 a.m. it was like completely booked.
No doubt there's people waiting out there right now for you. You got to get back to work. So I'll let you
Getting
run. And
there.
thanks for the conversation. Thank you for helping me educate my people. And I can't wait to come up and meet you in person. And
No
have a
problem.
great day, brother. Don't work too hard.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
We'll see you, Jeremiah. Take care, Doc.
Thanks, man.